Hello, hello. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Outside the Box. If you guys don't know me by now, my name is Sage the Coach. I have coach on the title of my name because I am a certified life and relationship coach, and I do a lot of my coaching, well, all of my coaching actually from a Christian perspective. And so, my show Outside the Box, which I've been doing for a few months now, is revolves around helping people to see that God is bigger than our boxes, because a lot of times, and it's not just with God, but with a lot of things in life, we kind of have a very narrow point of view about things, and that actually stops us from kind of thriving and growing and taking advantage of the opportunities that even God has for us. And so, what I have to show that God is bigger than our boxes today is a special guest, which is H.S. Jackson. Do you want me to just call you H.S. Jackson or by your first name, or how do you want me to say your name throughout this interview?
You can just call me Haseena. I'm not formal.
Haseena. Okay. So what I have Haseena, who is also, I hope I said that right. She is
Yep.
also a life coach. She is an author, and she has a lot of stuff going on. And so I'll just take a moment right now to let you introduce yourself, Haseena, and let people know who you are and what you do.
Who I am, my name is Haseena Shaheed Jackson, and I am, first of all, a proud Black woman. And secondly, I am a woman of God because God is the foundation of my life. And if it wasn't for Him, I would not be who I am today. And I thank Him for just giving me life and helping me along my way. And I know there's been times that I've done the wrong things, but He's helped me get back on the right path. And so I started off from, I always loved to read. And so that was a passion of mine. And I became a writer. And I used to do daily nuggets out every day for like about 10 years. And then someone said to me, "Will you answer the call?" It was my pastor. He said, "Will you answer the call?" And I kept going, "What call he talking about? Somebody gonna pick up the phone and call me?" And I said, "Well," and then my husband, he said, "Why don't you write your book?" And I wrote my first book, which was Reflections from Within, and they were just daily inspirational words. And I wrote my second one, Messages from the Spirit. And then I wrote my third one, is Created to Soar.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is that I just believe that we must believe in that spirit and the person that's within us and just go for the sky's the limit and don't let anyone tell you differently. And then I'm also big on leadership because in this world we have seen the lack of leadership that was over this country for a little while, and we start modeling that. And so we need to understand that a leader is first a servant. We're here to serve the people that's underneath us and that are following us, and not be a tyrant and a dictator, because you first have to give a hand before you ask for it.
Yeah.
So
All
that I
right.
move on and help others as much as I can. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think you may have forgotten to mention, sometimes I do too, that you're a life coach. So you talked about your books and you talked about where your inspiration comes from that. But can you tell people a little about your coaching? Because I think you do like a variety of things when it comes to your coaching also.
Or for coaching, I do more for personal development and leadership growth. That is my
Okay.
key because I want you to see with new eyes and make growth an adventure. And how you make growth of adventure is that you set goals, because goals are finite, but you want to be in for the infinite game. So you set the goal to where you need to grow to on a 6 month basis, a yearly basis, 5 years, 10 years. So goals, that's what you should do. And how
Oh,
can you turn those goals into how you can become a better leader?
okay. Okay, so and so would you say that so did the coaching come before the books or after the books, or what was your process into, because you said answering the call basically revolved around you writing books, but was coaching included in that, or did it come afterwards, or how did it fall into that?
I've always been a mentor. I just believe that we always should give back. And so to me, coaching is to help someone see, but not tell them what to do. So I started writing books first,
Okay.
but then I've always been a person that's helped people along the way in their careers or in their life. And it's just about not me. Again, I say that, you have all the answers. So it's not for me to tell you what to do. It's for me to ask you the right questions to help you find the solutions. Because once you find the solution, then you have the buy-in. So for me to be a dictator and say what you must do, how is that going to help you any?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I have a lot of coaches come on the show, and they all have the same story that they were kind of coaching people before they ever had the title, and it just kind of comes with the character, it seems. And it's just funny how often I hear that, because the same thing is for me. You just, it's like your personality, you're already kind of doing it, and becoming a coach is just kind of a natural fit. So I totally understand what you're saying about that. So, but today we want to focus more so on the book, that the more recent book that you just published, which is called Created to Soar. And I got a little bit of it, and some of the difficulties that I had with reading it, but it's very, very insightful, very inspirational. I was actually kind of surprised by it. I was thinking it was going to be more like in a devotional type of format, because you talked about having those little nuggets type of things, but there's actually a lot in there. There's even a lot of, I would say, for lack of a better word, biblical teaching in there to kind of help people understand the Bible a little bit more, or how they're seeing some certain stories and scriptures in the Bible. So can you just talk a little bit about what your book is about and where you got the inspiration from to write that?
I got the inspiration to write my book based on I felt that one, I needed to tell my story, some of my story, because some of my story is in the book, but I also wanted to let people see how the Bible relates to all the stages in your life, and how
Mm,
everything that you do, if you just go to the Bible, it's already there.
mm,
The answers and what people have done. For instance, your circle. I mean, Jesus Christ, he had a circle of primary Peter, John, and I believe it was Mark. So everybody has a circle.
mm,
We just
mm,
have to understand that the key is because one is too small a number to make, you can make a difference, but you achieve greatness with a circle.
mm,
And so the other thing is that you look at, we have to go through trials. I mean, Joseph, perfect example, another one. It took him what 17 years, I always get that, but he was in prison and he had that dream that he was going to be a great ruler, but he had to go through the process. I call it the process to get to where he really needed to become that ruler, because he had to be trying, he had to be given the values, because at first he was very arrogant, but
mm,
he had to be humble. But then what other thing is that he never once turned from God each time that he had a setback. I mean, he was placed in prison. So we have to learn how to also understand that God is with us along our path. And when we have those setbacks and those trials, is to make us better, not to pull us down, but to
mm,
lift us up.
mm. Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really powerful in your story, you talked about as a kid learning the power of your words, and how you got in trouble at school. How you got in trouble at school from saying some things. I think it was to a teacher. And so, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I thought that was really, really powerful, and interesting, especially from a child's kind of perspective. I know you probably kind of came into the understanding of more of that as you got older, but I really thought that that was a very, very powerful story. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, my mother and father, so, and I mentioned that a little bit in the book too. My mother and father, my father was from the north, my mother was from the south. And so they instilled in us is that no one can make you feel like you're this small.
Mm,
You are great. And so
mm,
don't ever let anyone think that you're not. And so my eighth grade teacher, when she came to class, and I was one of those people that I always had to be the one that stood up for everybody else. And so I had to learn that lesson that you can't stand up for everybody. You have to learn how to sit back,
mm,
watch, and learn. And so she came to class, and other students was complaining about how just mean she was, and how she was just taking over and making us do these things, and she just had such a chip on her shoulder. And I forget what she said to me because it's been so long ago, but she said something, and I said, "Huh? Who you talking to?" or something like that, along that line. Like, you talking to me? You talking to me? That kind of thing. So, and so I was like, and I said something back to her, and she said, "Get out of my class." And I said, "Get out of your class." I said, "I get out of here, and I ain't never got to come back." I'm all thinking bad, right? I'm in eighth grade. I need to graduate, and I'm telling her I ain't gonna never come back. I know she think girl crazy or what. So I used to always, my mouth would get me in trouble. So my mom and dad would come up to school at times. So I went home that day, and my mom and my mom said, "What happened?" Did it again, Mama. Did it again. You got to go up to school. And she said, I'm tired of going up to school. I said, I know, but you taught me to speak up for myself.
Mm.
So it was just funny that I had to be placed in another class, but then I saw her, what, maybe 10, 12 years later. And I was so embarrassed because I said to myself, because the Bible teaches us no matter what, respect your leaders. Even if they're wrong, you respect your leaders
Mm.
because they were placed in that position for a reason. And she felt bad as well because we both looked at each other and we just hung our heads like, yeah, that was the time, wasn't it? I said, yeah, that was the time. Laughed and we moved on. But that was a lesson that just stuck with me, the fact that I had to learn, and I still had to learn even in my life now. I had to really learn a lesson like 10 years ago because I still would sit up there and take up for other people. And I would be the one in the room, and then I would say, go ask them what they think. And they could make say, oh, I'm okay. That ain't what you just told me a few minutes ago. So after that, I was like, I'm not gonna say another word. Because if you're
Mm.
not gonna say that, I know I'm not either.
Mm. Mm. Wow. And so and there's a lot of stuff like that in the book. And I really like how you kind of took some of these everyday stories, like you said, about helping people to see that the you can apply the Bible to so many different circumstances in your life. I mean, I think like a lot of the time, especially in, I would say, even my generation, probably every generation, who knows, but people feel like the Bible is out of touch with today, or the Bible is outdated, or the Bible is old. But there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, and the principles in the Bible, even if you want to strip it down of a higher being and who created us, there is still a lot of wisdom in the Bible that you can apply to your life every day today. And so I really like how you kind of flushed that out and made people understand that the Bible is still relatable, the Bible is still important, and the Bible, yes, it still applies to even the things that you're going through today. So I really, really like that about the book. Um, do you have like some, I mean, because I know you go through few things, and I don't want to condense your book for you. Excuse me. So what would be like some main principles from your book that you would want people to get from it, or that you want people who are watching to know about your book, that they can kind of be more interested in purchasing it?
Well, like I said before, the circle is very key to me. And I was looking for actually the book. I had it out earlier. The
Mm-hmm.
circle. And another one, if I can reference it here, is overcoming and the faith.
Okay. Okay.
Because we have to believe that we're overcomers.
Mm.
And then faith is your pillar. Is if you don't have faith, you're not going to stand it off. So
Mm-hmm.
you must understand, because faith is allowing you to go that next step, because you have hope and
Mm.
you believe in what cannot be seen, because we know that there's a God, correct? but
Yeah, of course.
but
I do. Yeah.
but we've never seen God, but we know that we got here. And for someone, when people say, well, God didn't create the world, well, then, okay, well, I don't know where you got that from, but if it starts with Genesis 1, God opened up his mouth and there was things that were just created. So I believe in the creator made us who we are today.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that if you look in there and you look at Apostle Paul, he's another one. He went through everything. He was whipped, he was beaten, but he never once gave up. And those things, what is key to me as we go through our trials. I mean, look at where we just came from out of COVID-19.
Mm.
I don't, that's never happened in my lifetime. But
Right.
imagine, God really gave us a reset button.
Mm. Mm.
Told us
Mm.
to everybody take a pause, to reflect, reset, and now determine which path we need to really be going down. And
Mm.
for so all these things are in the Bible, because when you said earlier it's outdated, but there's nothing new underneath the sun. Ecclesiastics tells you that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Humanity is still humanity. So yeah.
So there's nothing new underneath the sun. So if you just go to the Bible, there's every story. Look at Ruth. That's another
Mm.
story.
Mm.
She, I mean, she went, and if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have Jesus.
Mm.
So because she could have turned back like her sister-in-law,
Mm.
I'm just going to stay with the comfortable. But why be comfortable when you know there could be better?
Mm,
We have to become uncomfortable to get to the other side, to get to be exceptional, to be able.
mm,
We must all look at those different stories in the Bible. Look at Esther. She was an orphan, became a
mm,
queen.
mm,
That lets you know that all things are possible if you just believe in who you are, and don't let anybody say the vision that you have so cannot be realized, because it can't.
mm,
It's all in how you put into your mind the positive mindset. So if you say, "Well, I'm horrible. I'm never going to be anything every day," then that's what you're going to be. But if you,
mm.
I'm going to be one day the president of my own company, and you keep saying that every day, then resources will be provided. Things will come to you, and you will get those things. So you have to look at Joseph. I mean, every story, I going back to Joseph because that one is such an inspiration. And then Job, he lost everything, but he was tested to see would he curse God, or would he stay, or would he cleave to God? And what he did, he's cursed himself. He said, "Well, I must be the worst person out here." But he never once turned his back on God. We need to understand the thing that happens to us is to add to our character, and it goes to our values, because I'm a person of value. That if you figure out what your top 7 or 5 values are, and then you apply those values to your life, you can become the person that you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Wow. So you said a lot there that I want to try to touch on a little bit. One thing is that one of the main things that I think can be missed. I've of course come across people who have missed them, especially when it comes to the Bible, because we're talking about the Bible in terms of it being outdated and things like that, is that it's not so much about the stories and those specific situations, but the principles underneath them. And I think that that's kind of what your book and even what you're saying kind of hints to. So it's like, are we Job? I mean, are we Joseph? Are we in a family of a bunch of brothers that don't like us and we're arrogant? Like those specific circumstances are not what you should be looking at. Or like when people say it's outdated, we don't deal in cattle anymore and things like that. But those principles, the
Mhm.
principles of keeping your faith and having hope and all the things that you're talking about, using wisdom, pushing forward, those principles are timeless. Like you can't ever say that there's a time where those principles will not apply. And when we learn to apply them, that's when we start to get the results, or as you say, we can overcome situations when we learn how to apply those principles. And they are all throughout the Bible. And so that was one thing that I kind of pulled from what you were saying. Another thing, and I know I'm looking down and stuff because I write down my notes so that I don't forget what I want to say. Um, is that another thing is that life itself is a lesson. Life is just to teach us about who we are and who God is. And a lot of times I think people get so focused on achieving their goals and having this and having that and wanting this, that we don't realize that those things are only tools to teach us some certain principles in life. Those things are not the end goal. The end goal is learning the lesson. And then when you learn the lesson, a lot of times that's when you reach your goal. But we get so focused on the with our fallen existence, we do stuff backwards. So instead of us being focused on the end goal, I mean, instead of us being focused on the principles or what's more important, we get focused on the smaller things, which is what can we have, what we like, what we don't like, and things like that. But life itself is just a lesson. It's a basically a huge classroom. So in your challenges for, like you're saying, things that you go through in life, they are all to teach you about who you are. And so when we learn who we are through our circumstances, even if it's difficult, like you say, like Joseph and Job and things like that, they learn things about themselves and God through those situations that made them more well-rounded people and actually more of the people that God created them to be. And so yeah, that's really really important, and I like how your book really kind of flushes that out. And you talked about the mind. And so, can you talk a little bit more about, because I think this is really important, and a lot of people don't get this one also, how your thinking kind of determines what you will do. And so, you talked about that a little bit. Can you kind of expound on that a little bit more for, because we're coaches, so we kind of have a little bit deeper understanding of that than I think the average person does. So would you mind kind of flushing that out a little bit and kind of showing the connection between the way you think and how that transitions into what you eventually become?
Well, let's look at the mind. So if and I love the book The Secret. That was one of the first books that I read as well. And then The Power of the Subconscious Mind. So what if your subconscious mind is really the one that's in control, and it
Mm,
can take over your conscious mind if you just allow it to. So it's what you manifest. So if every day you have the affirmations of I am beautiful, I am blessed, I am loved, and you say that, and you put out there that I am going to be the owner of my own business, and you stick to that vision, and you follow through with what kind of business that you want, and you think about your gifts and your talents, and then you just continue to manifest those thoughts. But if you sit around and say, "Oh, woe is me, I'm never going to be anything, I'm just going to sit here in the house, eat and look at TV and never do anything," then that's what you're going to do, because that's what you believe. And you've
mm-hmm,
allowed your mind, the conscious mind, to take over and overpower what your subconscious mind can put into the vision in you, saying what it is that you can really do.
mm,
I mean, I look at if you look at the dreamer Daniel in the book. I mean, he had such powerful dreams, and if he had not followed those dreams, he would not have done many of the things that he was supposed to do. So again, we go back to the Bible and dreaming, the subconscious mind. There's that correlation right there again. It's what you believe and what you manifest. So I look at, again, I go to myself as a perfect example. I was in school. I was following my sisters. I was a sibling. I was the baby of three children.
mm,
And I followed my sister and brother to high school because that's all the babies do, correct? Just follow them around. And they said, well, you just going to go home economics. You're going to get the trade. And then that's it. And I said, okay, that's all I'm going to do. And I spoke about this in my book. And I had a gym teacher, and she could be no more than 4'9", and she thought, and but she packed a punch, and
mm,
she would me every day going home with a little piece of paper that's folded up in my hand. This is my book, but it was just a little piece of paper, and that was it.
mm,
And she said, "Shahid, get here," and I said, "Oh goodness!" If she called me, I'm in trouble. But if it was not for her, she said, "What are you doing with your life?" I said,
mm,
"I'm coming to school every day. I'm doing my homework. What else do you think I'm doing?" And she says, "No, there's a lot more to you than that." But see,
mm,
the whole point is that, and I'm not picking on my parents or my family, but I was following what I was used to, following what I was taught. But it took someone else to plant in me that seed of there's more in you than what you see.
mm,
And so I wouldn't have went to college, wouldn't have got my master's degree, and wouldn't became a book author and have my own business if I had just did the follow me syndrome, because that's what I knew. So we have to take it when someone speaks into your life, or when you get that voice in you that says, you can be better than this, you can do more than that. You need to believe that, and then you start thinking about, well, what can I be better with? What can And then you look and take stock of your and you look at your values, and you say, what do I really enjoy doing? What inspires me to jump out of bed every day and go, I'm here, I'm ready to go? Instead of going, oh, I wake up every day, I go to work, I come home, I cook dinner, I go to bed. I wake up every day, I go to work, I come home. You know what I'm saying? That's this whole drum. Don't settle for that.
mm,
Say, I
mm,
wake up every day, and what am I going to do today? That's what
mm,
you say instead. What
mm,
do you do? You take control, right?
mm, mm. Wow. So again, there was a lot in there, and so it kind of goes a little bit back to what you were saying about the circle, because it's not only like, okay, so we're talking about the mind. So basically, from the mind, what you're saying is that, and I look at it like this: our mind is actually a characteristic of God. So we were created to be creating God's image. So we're like small gods. I know people go too far with that sometimes and start saying they're God, but we are small gods. Like, we have God's creativity, his power, and his makeup, and our mind is a part of God's character. So whatever we think, we can create. So whatever, because God thought of, and I think I said this before in another video. So if anybody's hearing me say this for a second time, bear with me. But God didn't just like, he thought of the world before he made it. He thought of us before he made us. And so when you think something and then you put it to action, you can bring it to pass. And so if we think something, especially if because the only way we're going to act on it is if we really believe it. Like we have thoughts going through our head all day. We don't act on all of them. Thank goodness we don't act on all of them. But, the ones that we actually believe are the ones that we will act on. So if you really believe that you are, like you say, going to have your own company, then you will take the steps to bring that to pass, and then you will create it. You will bring it into reality. That is a godlike quality. And so when you don't believe it, you're not going to take the steps to bring it to pass, and that's why it won't happen. And so your mind is very, very important in creating your environment, creating your world. And so it goes back to what you were saying about the circle, because the people you surround yourself with will feed your mind of ideas and beliefs and plant seeds in you that you probably didn't have access to before, like what you were saying about your teacher, because your mind kind of gets wired to absorb what it's around. And so if that's all you're around, then you won't even think to have a company. And so okay, for example, let me go, because you started off saying you're a proud black woman. So let's put this in context of what black people go through sometimes, not all. If you have a young boy that's growing up in the hood and all he sees is violence and drugs and gangs and stuff, it's going to be very easy for him to copy that. But if you have someone, like you said, speaks into his life and gives him the idea, plants the seed that he can do something more, then that gives him something to act on. So it's very important, like that our circle with your book, how you was explaining the importance of the circle, because those people are going to be the main influencers of where your mind goes, and so it's really important. And a lot of people, especially because I did grow up in the hood, and a lot of people just really surround themselves with people that don't really mean them any good. And then you wonder why 5, 10 years later you haven't really progressed and done the things that you maybe thought of. It was one of those fleeting thoughts that you didn't really grab hold to because you didn't believe you could do it. But you have to be careful who you surround yourself with, because they're feeding your mind. Whether you know it or not, they're feeding your mind. They're planting seeds in you. They're encouraging you. They're directing you, because that's just how the mind operates. And we can't really get around that. So I know that was a little bit of a speech there, but I just wanted to kind of explain that, because I want people to watch this and actually walk away from it understanding what we're talking about. And it's very easy for like us as coaches to just talk to each other as coaches, and people who are sitting back like they don't really get it or they don't understand the connection or whatever. So I'm really big on like explaining things so that people can actually get what we're talking about. So you talk about the circle, you talk about overcoming. One thing that I'm thinking about in relation to what you're saying is your book is called Created to Soar. And so it's not just like, you can soar if you choose to soar. It's like your decision. But you're saying that God actually created us to soar. So can you kind of explain that a little bit in context with everything else?
Of course. And one thing I want to say, I go back to the that another thing that back is his fear,
Mm,
because we have to learn how to face our fears. So you have to be courageous, and you
mm,
have to know that you have to take risks, and you can't allow the naysayers, like you said again, the circle, because it goes to your circle too, the ones in your life, to say that you can't amount to anything else other than being a drug dealer or whatever out here on the streets, because that's not true.
mm,
Because you
mm,
look at all the people that have come before us, and and come and they were in the same kind of instance, like just where I didn't come from a rich family, and I'm still not rich today by any means, but it's not about the money. The thing is that I knew that I could be impactful and be significant in trying to help another person and add value to them. But going to the created to soar, and that's the way we were created. You mentioned on it earlier, you touched on it. It's the fact that we're created in God's image.
mm,
So
mm,
if we're created in God's image, what do you think that means? That you are an heir, and you have to believe in that greatness because he gifts you with his spirit, and you have that spirit that empowers you and enables you to press forward to become the person that he created you to be, because he already has in you, has instilled in you all the gifts and talents that you need if you just will cultivate them
Mm,
instead of us sitting over here looking at what somebody else has, because that's the drawback we look at. Because Mary Jane has a big Hummer or a Mercedes or whatever the big cars are, and you're really more looking at what they have instead of looking at what you have.
mm,
Because within you, you have the potential. The question I have for you, you're just going to let that potential be wasted because
mm,
God gifted you with it, and your gift back to Him is using it. When you don't
mm,
use it, you're throwing His gift back in His face, and you're saying, "I don't care what it is. I'm going to sit over here and cross my legs and let life pass me by." So again, you have that greatness of His Spirit, and He says it when you accept that Spirit, He comes in and He's your guidance counselor. He tells you the way. And I love what Jesus said. That's one of the things in the book where they said, "Follow me." Every disciple he came to, all he said to them was, "Follow me." And what did they do? They dropped what they were doing, right?
mm,
They didn't ask no questions. He just
mhm,
said, "Follow me."
mm,
And that's all God says. He says, "Follow me." So if we will follow him, he will take you where you need to go. It's when you don't follow him that you lose out.
mm, mm. Wow. So yeah, and so in following him, I think that goes back to what you were saying before about faith. Because it's very easy to say follow God, but following him, I mean, in all honesty, it is difficult. Like it's not easy. Don't expect it to be easy. Nothing in life worth having is easy. But what keeps you going is having faith. And so I talk a lot about the difference between hope and faith. And so, in your opinion, do you think that there's a difference between hope and faith, especially when it comes to like following God?
Well, faith is believing. Hope is seeing is knowing that what you is that what you're seeking can be realized.
Mm,
So you use your faith to be the foundation of you realizing that hope, that what you're seeking. See them. So that's how I relate to those two, and they
yeah.
go hand in hand because you have to have those eyes. Because like I see you right here, and you see me,
Hmm.
but you have a vision of whatever it is
Mm.
manifested. And maybe you have your own big talk show, and we'll all be around you one day. We be like, "Hey, I remember Sage, the coach. We was on podcast, but now she got 5,000 people in this audience. You know what I'm saying? Me, 20,000 people, whatever." But the
Yeah.
point is that you have that vision because that's your hope, and you
Mm,
have faith because you believe that you could do it. Correct?
mm, mm,
That's what it's all about. So you have to have, and that goes to the vision that you have for your life and what you can do,
mm.
and then believing in it. And again, we go to the power of the mind, and
Yeah.
manifest, and the resources that you need will come to you. And the only and like I said when I first started, yes, I'm a black woman because I am a woman of color. So I'm never going to forget that because that's my heritage. And my
Yeah.
grandma,
Yeah.
and she was actually, my grandfather was white. So
Mm.
so it doesn't bother me about race, but what I want people to understand is that there is a struggle out here.
Oh
So when,
yes.
so when I see people, I want people to see that, like the movie I saw, and I can't think of the name of it, but it was powerful and it brought me to tears. It was on TV and it was based on a regiment of Army men, black soldiers that were sent to help a small town, and it was a racist town. It was horrible. They were beating up them for helping them, and they were sent there to be their safe, to protect them.
Take them. Yeah.
So the one black man was placed in prison, and he was going to be killed. And then his commander, who was white, came to him and said, "Well, you should just snitch on your people in your group." And he says, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a snitch." But then he said, "But I just want to tell you this. When I saw the man, when I saw the man that brought me here, I saw a man. When he looked at me, She didn't see a man. And that's
Mm,
what's horrible. Why can't you just see that you're a woman and I'm a woman? Why we have to say that you can't be anything because of the color of your skin?
mm, mm, mm.
And that
Yeah,
makes me angry.
yeah, yeah. No, it's messed up. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we don't want to go and this conversation to a whole race topic. I want to stick
No,
to
I
your.
was saying when I started off with it, I was just clarifying because I know that at the end of the day, this is not. This is about. I wish that this world would not even think about color, but it is a factor, and we have to, and it's something we have to overcome. I'm blessed to have friends though who are white and Asian and all different colors because I don't believe that I need to be sticking with one race. I believe that we're all one people, and we just need
Yeah.
to be in that. And that's. I mean, that's so we won't need to talk about the racism and those things out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, but I want to stick to your book because that's not what I brought you here for. But but I think it's important, and I like what you're saying because I mean, of course, I'm a black woman too, and the thing about that, I mean, when you take away the skin color and stuff like that, we're all spirits and we're all the same. We're just wrapped in different flesh. But black people do have unique struggles that come from just being black in this world. And I do feel like the same way I think you do, that we do have a responsibility to kind of help other blacks if we can kind of navigate some of those things, like especially if we figured it out and you kind of broke the cycle or the statistic or whatever it was in your family, because we all kind of have stuff that we do have a responsibility not only as black people but as fellow spiritual human beings to now help other people kind of find their way forward also. So I don't have any issue with you mentioned you're a black woman or anything like that. I just wanted to use the example that you gave, or use that to give an example about, the mind and things like that, because it is important. And so maybe we can have another show about that because it is I talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but it is important, So, and I mean, even a loving who you are, who God created you to be, it's very essential to like overcoming, like you're saying, like if you don't like yourself, you don't like how you are, you don't appreciate who you are and things like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to conquer any of obstacles that come in your way, because you're struggling, you're using most of your energy fighting with yourself. So how can you now really funnel that energy into pursuing your goals when you have a problem with yourself? So it's very important to be at peace with yourself as well, and accept who you are, if you're black, white, Asian, whatever. But nobody has a right to mistreat anybody because of that. So anyway, um, okay, we were talking about faith and hope. Okay, so you got a little bit into. Okay, I want to ask you a question, and then I want to go back to something that you said. So what do you do like as a coach? And I know you say you don't force people to do stuff, and it might not necessarily be in a coaching situation, but if you come across people who you're telling them all these things about what they need to do, and they're saying, well, but what about this? Or I can't do this, or but what about that? And what about that? Like, how do you deal with people who have a more pessimistic attitude and not really able to receive what you're saying? Like, how do you deal with those people? Because I can imagine people might be watching and saying, well, I can't achieve my goal because of so and so, or because of this, or because of that. And so we're like telling them, like, you actually have what it takes to do that. So, what would you say to people who are seeing these obstacles in their way and they're saying, but this, but this, but that?
Well, let's first remove the words but, and let's
Mm-hmm.
remove the words can't. That would
Mm-hmm.
so let's think about if these roadblocks or obstacles were not there, what could you do?
Mm-hmm.
And what's truly stopping you? Because at the end, when you say the words but and can't, you're speaking the negatives out there. So of course, we all have things in life. I mean, let's look at time. People always say I don't have, but you can make time for whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. It's just a matter of how you discipline the time that you have. I mean, and I was just having this conversation with someone just recently too about being disciplined. It's not about being disciplined; it's developing the habit and then
Mm-hmm.
connecting the slots of time. So let's say, for instance, like every morning I wake up and I read and I pray and I spend my time getting my mind. That's just a given because I want the foundation of my day to be solid. I mean, and things come up during the day. It's always going to happen. But the point is that you have to develop that mindset of how can I instead of saying can't. So
Mm,
I would ask you to say, what can you do? And we can take it in small steps. So
mm,
that's what you do too. Is take it in small steps.
mm,
So you don't go to run a marathon the first day. You gonna first maybe start maybe running 2 blocks and then walking 2 blocks. And then
mm.
and that might be for 2, 3 days. And that's the perfect example for me. At first I didn't run that much. And I used to laugh at myself. I would run a block and be and then I got to the point where it's like you just be free and you're running and you're running. But I set milestones. I would run, walk, run, walk, run, walk for 2 miles.
Mm.
So it's like you have to take steps, the small steps that get you there. It's not leaping to the marathon. So what small steps can we take? What I would ask that person.
Yeah, wow, that's really good. I mean, while you were talking, what it made me think about, and sometimes it's even small steps, like what you're saying, because a lot of stuff you're saying is like about action and running. But even when it comes to like your thinking, so if you don't believe that you can do something because it's big, say you want to be the president, that looks really, really huge. But a lot of times you just have to start small, like you say in your thinking. Okay, let's not, because that can be overwhelming. Like if you're thinking of this huge goal you want to do and it seems like it's too much for you. Okay, well, start small. So what can you change in your thinking today that will put you on a trajectory towards that path? And so one of the things that I remember for myself, God was telling me that something big was going to happen in my life, and nothing in my life was looking like it was going in that direction, even a little bit. And so every time something would happen and I would get upset, and I'm just like, I don't see how this can happen, God. This is what I'm saying to God. And so he told me like to stop looking at that big thing that I showed you. I know I showed you that, but stop looking at that and just say today it's going to be okay. Just say that. Just believe that for today. And I just was like, okay, it's going to be okay. And so gradually when I repeated that to myself enough times, where I'm like, oh yeah, everything's going to be okay, it became easier to now transition into that bigger thinking of where he was actually taking me. So I think that's really, really key and really important, and not just your actions, but also your thinking, is to take small steps. So if it's very easy to say, like what you're saying, I can't, but if you just take a small step in the right direction, that's how you get going. And so I think that's really, really important. So that touched me. So yeah, thank you.
Right. I'm happy
um,
to touch you over there, because I don't know. I know it's a tough cookie, I can tell.
Oh, I mean, I am, but the thing about it is that it reminded me of that time that God told me to just believe for today that everything is going to be okay. And so when I look back now, it's like, of course he was right. Everything was okay. So it just reminded me of that, and that's why it touched me. It's like God is very, very faithful.
Right. But if you think about Barack Obama, he didn't
Mm,
become president overnight. He took baby steps. He was senator and other things that he did. And I look at Nelson Mandela. I mean, he was in prison for all those years, but he still became president of his nation. So it's all about
mm,
your thinking. He didn't let
yes.
stay on. He said, my body's in here, but my mind ain't. So the whole thing,
Mm,
but the power of your mind.
wow. Yeah. So one thing that you kind of touched on that I want to bring up before we end, you talked about fear, and we didn't really go into it that much. So can you talk? Because of course, that's a huge barrier for a lot of people. So can you talk a little bit, especially about when your book, when it talks about fear, how that is a barrier for us, and some of the things that steps that we can take to move past that.
Well, it's fearful. I mean, just think about writing this book. It was fearful to me to really put my personal story out there to people. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm a very private person, and my cousin, if she was watching this, she would say, "Yeah," she was, because she's funny. She said she don't tell you nothing. It's pulling teeth,
Mm,
But I've learned that if you don't share,
mm,
then how are you going to help someone else? So
exactly.
that fear. So you have to just face that fear and go, well, why can't I do it? What's
Mm,
stopping me? Because fear is really a way of holding you back, but you use that faith, I mean that fear instead to propel you forward, and you lean on the person that you can be and what you are inspiring to do. And you say, but at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is this. So isn't that bigger than your fear?
mm, mm,
That's what you have to think about. Is so the fear is a way to distract you and dissuade you from really following your dreams.
mm, mm,
But
mm,
instead, you have to put out that bag of courage and take the step. And
mm,
I know that I'm going to be successful with this, and that it's going to be okay.
mm,
Because
mm,
because if I don't take this step, then I always will look back and go, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Don't you hate that? We go, coulda, woulda, shoulda. And
mm,
but coulda, woulda, shoulda ain't gonna get you to the next step. It's gonna
mm,
do. It's I did it, and I'm gonna continue to do something more. Because
mm.
we have to strive for the word more. Be more, become more, do more, learn more, be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like you were talking about a little bit ago about the vision that we have for our life. And so I talked about how God thought of the world and us before he made us. And so, with that power, we can think of what we want and we have the capacity to bring it to pass. And so, fear is actually us using the power of our imagination for the wrong reason. So it's like you're supposed to use it to create, and fear actually stops you from creating. It's like you using that power for the wrong reason. And so nothing will come out of it. Like, like we talked about seeds and how you have to cultivate. You can't cultivate anything with fear. Like, and that's the purpose of it, is to stop you from growing in your gift and bringing it to pass and being like God's small gods on the earth, because that's what he does. He creates. And so fear is the opposite of what our original nature or purpose in life is supposed to be. And so um, another thing about fear that I always find like a little bit interesting, I guess you can say, is that it's not real. Like a lot of people treat their fears like they're real, but they're imaginary. Like, you can't, they respond to life as if the fear has actually happened already, but it hasn't happened, but it's in your mind. You're creating the fear. And so it's stopping you, but it's not real. Like it's just in your mind, and the same way your mind imagine it, the same way your mind cannot imagine it. And so we respond in life out of fear like it's real, but it's just your imagination. And so I think it's important to point out that fear is not real. So don't treat it like it's real. It's basically a thought. And it's up to you to cultivate that thought and grow that thought, or to toss it out and move forward. And so a lot of people get held back by fear. I know I have had, like you talked about your book. Of course, I've had issues with fear. And I don't think anything that we're saying here is like, do it like us because we did it right and we know what to do. But it's like, no, we've been through this too. And this is how we got past it, because everybody goes through fear. Everybody has doubt. Everybody has to check their circle at some point and take note of the people that they have around. Everybody has to remind themselves that they are overcomers. And I think your book is really good at not only reminding people who may already know these things about what's important, because we always can use reminders, or to expose people's mind, like we talked about your circle, exposing people's mind to a different way of perceiving themselves, their lives, their reality, and things like that. And so I really, really enjoyed your book, and I definitely think it's something that anybody who is trying to, who struggles to kind of deal with even everyday life or reaching their goals or just understanding God's role in their life as far as those things, the book is a definite must read for anybody in those situations. Um, is there anything else you want to kind of say about your book before we wrap up here?
Well, one of the things that always stands out to me, and it was actually, what's really funny. I say this. I was in a meeting, and someone put this quote on the on up, and I said, who wrote that? That's a good quote. she said, you did. I said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "Woo," because it just made me pause. But what really I love is my last page where it says we're created to soar. That there be times when the storm is raging around us and we are in the calm of the eye of the storm, that's dreading the storm around us. This does not mean we stop soaring. We have options in a crisis, which are opportunities.
Mm,
See, crises allow you to see opportunities.
mm, mm,
So you must determine the course that you're going to take.
mm, mm,
And so that's why I say you grab your wings and you soar.
mm,
And one of the things that came to me was my pastor said, when you look up, you see the stars and you see the possibilities. But when you look down, what do you see? Nothing but dirt and mud.
mm,
So
mm.
your eyes up and know that the stars are possible if you just will believe in yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. So, thank you so much. Again, your book. Can you tell people where they can get your book from? I know it's on Amazon, but do you have it anywhere else? And like, how much is it, and things like that?
Well, my book is right now just on Amazon. I am looking at other platforms, but if you go to my website, you can always click directly on the link. It's hsjackson.com. Also, I'm offering different workshops. I have a summit that's coming up September 25th, 2021. And it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's called Forward Thinking. So we're
Hmm.
going to renew our perspective, release our past, and remember our vision. We're going to, because the past, we learn from it. We talked about that earlier.
Hmm.
Yes, it's lessons, but it has to be evaluated for it to really be impactful.
Exactly.
I want you to take what you did in 2021, feel and leave 2021 with a bang, because you still
Mm.
need to accomplish what you set out to do. And in 2022, you're going to launch off and blast off straight because you need to start planning now. So the whole thing is that we have to always be in a planning, understanding that we have to have strategy and we must develop and we must be active, develop, that person that's within us to say, yes, do it. Because if we don't do that, we are giving up. And it's not, it's not you and anybody else.
Mm. Yeah. All right. So you guys make sure you check out Haseena Jackson's HS Jackson. I think the name on the book is HS Jackson though, right?
The name of the book is Created to Soar and it's by H.S. Jackson.
HS Jackson, right. And so Created to Soar, you guys check it out. It's a very, very inspiring read. Also, Haseena has again the summit coming up. When is it again?
September 25th, 2021, and registration is open. Again, if you go to my website, hsjackson.com, there's a link out there for you to go ahead and register.
Okay. And so is there anything else you want to let people know? I'm not about your social media, anything else going on before we wrap up?
Well, I also have every second Saturday. I have a networking group because again, it's all about connecting and collaborating to thrive. I believe that we get into our mindset that we don't need to network, but you do. I met you through networking.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
thankful.
Yeah.
Have now we've established a connection and we chat every so often. And but the thing is that you never know who you know or who I know that can help each other out. So it's not about
Exactly.
out here and getting business from you. It's about establishing that connection.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that I'm here to help facilitate the networking, and it's part of, and that's what I try to do is help you grow your network and grow into the business that you are seeking to do, and also become a better leader and just evolve.
Yeah. And so people can find out about that group on your website as well, correct?
Everything's
Okay.
yes, one stop.
Yeah. All right. So thank you again for, your book. If you have something else coming up or another book you publish, let me know. We can always do another show. And you guys make sure you check out her book, her website. I will post the link to her website under the comments in on this video. For Facebook, I can do it for YouTube too. So under the comments, I will post the link for that. And I think that's it. So thank you again. Thank you again for, this interview. It was really touching and inspiring to me. And I didn't finish your book completely, and you kind of know why, but I'm going to get a copy that I can read and finish it because it's definitely inspired me, and I want to finish the rest of it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much too, Sage.
Oh, no problem. You guys have a good night.
Yes, good night, everyone.
All right. Bye bye.